The 66th edition of the Caribbean Series is taking place from February 1st to the 9th, and for the first time in over 30 years will be on the U.S. mainland. Lone Depot Park in Miami is the venue. The first time ever a Major League Stadium will host the series. 7 countries will take part this year. The 4 permanent members, Dominican Republic, Puerto Rico, Mexico, and Venezuela, along with Panama, Nicaragua, and Curacao. 2 countries that were participants a year ago are not returning this year. Cuba, they made a return to the Caribbean Series last year when it was in Venezuela. That was after a 3-year absence. This year, with it being in Miami, we knew it wasn't going to happen. Colombia, because of a financial dispute, is not part of the Caribbean Series either. They had taken part in the last 4 Caribbean Series, including their Cinderella run to the title in 2022. Making their debut this year is Nicaragua, a long overdue debut. Their professional league, the LBPN, has always been seen as on par with the top leagues of Panama and Colombia, sometimes even better. And it was the highest level professional winter league in the Caribbean region to never get an invite, so we're really glad to see them here. If you're new to the Caribbean Series, you might be a little confused at first. You see teams like Tigres and Gigantes win their league titles, qualify for the series. Then when the Caribbean Series comes around, they're called Dominican Republic and Nicaragua. 7 teams participating, so if you didn't follow all winter, it could be annoying trying to remember which teams come from which leagues. And a lot of team names are repeated from one league to another. You could end up having 2 teams with the same name going up against each other. To avoid that confusion, they go by the name and wear the uniform of the country the league is in, even though not all the players are from that country. A player might be Dominican but playing with Venezuela across his chest. So these are not national teams, this is a club championship, but the team they bring to the Caribbean Series in February is not the same team they had during the regular season in December. At the end of the season, postseason teams draft players from non-postseason teams. After the final series, the champion will pick up a few more reinforcement players from other playoff teams. So don't judge a team by its mediocre record during the regular season. The players they added to their roster after the season can push them to the top. Most of the players on the team, though, were with the team all season, and the ball club gets credit for whatever they achieve in the Caribbean Series. Let's start with the defending champions, Tigres del Licey of the Dominican Republic. Not only are they the 2023 Caribbean Series champions, they hold the all-time record for most Caribbean Series titles with 12. That's twice as many as the next team on the list. They'll be trying for number 13 at this year's tournament. If they do, it'll be their first time winning the Caribbean Series back-to-back. They are also the winningest team in Lidom history, now with 24 league titles, but it wasn't so easy for them. In the regular season, they were 25-25, 4th out of the 6 Lidom teams, allowing them to grab the last spot in the postseason. In the 4-team, 18-game postseason round robin, they were 10-8, just good enough for second place and a trip to the final series. In the final series versus Estrellas Orientales, they fell behind 2-0, won the next 3, lost Game 6, then won Game 7 by the score of 3-2 for the Lidom title. Pitchers seen on the left there, Cesar Valdez and Raul Valdez were both in the top 5 in Lidom in ERA. Raul Valdez is 46 now, still getting it done on the mound. Andy Otero really came through in the postseason, 5 starts with an ERA of 1.54. In the bullpen, Neftali Feliz did not allow a run in 13 postseason appearances, 5 of those in the final series. In the infield, Sergio Alcantara hit for the D-backs and Padres a couple years ago. Good numbers in AAA last year. Not so good this winter, but he's got the ability to have a good series. Vidal Brujan, Tampa Bay Rays last year. He'll be with the Marlins this year. He did have a good winter, with an on-base percentage over 400 and 23 steals. Robinson Cano, there's a name everyone knows. He can still hit. Dawel Lugo and Gustavo Nunez were 2 of the best hitters during the final series. In the outfield, Luis Barrera, former Oakland A's, a .368 batter during the final series. Emilio Bonifacio, one of the leading hitters and base stealers during the regular season and postseason. Yadiel Hernandez, a decent hitter with the Washington Nationals a couple years ago, good at getting on base this winter. Jorge Alfaro at catcher, a recognizable name, but he struggled in MLB last summer and in Lidom this winter. Average during the regular season, not the best in the round robin, and just barely won the final series, but never count the Dominican team out. Besides, getting a tough test in the final series, followed by a nice short break, might be just the right preparation they need for this tournament. Tigres were not a good hitting or pitching team in the regular season, but in the postseason had the lowest team ERA. Definitely bringing more of a hitting team here though. They don't have all the best pitchers from Lidom, but they've got enough to aim for the gold. Mexico's representative is Nan Heroes de Hermosillo. They earned their spot by winning their league record 17th LMP title. It was their first championship in 10 years. The last time they won an LMP title in 2014, they also won the Caribbean Series, only the second time they won it. They didn't start out looking so good this season. They were 17-18 in the first half, but in the second half they had the second best record, second best overall record too, landing them the number 2 seed. In the playoffs they dominated, winning in the quarterfinals 4-1, and sweeping the semifinals and finals, both in 4 games. They come into the Caribbean Series on an 11-game win streak. In the infield, they've got Tampa Bay Rays hitter Isaac Paredes. He was a big contributor in the final series for Nan Heroes. Roberto Valenzuela had a .431 on-base percentage in the LMP this year. In the outfield, Aaron Altair, former MLB and KBO, only played half a season but had an OPS over 1,000. Jose Cardona led the league in stolen bases, averaging 1 every 2 games. Catcher has been a weakness for them, but they've picked up Alexis Wilson to make up for that. He's got a little power and he gets on base. Pitchers, former MLB and KBO starting pitcher Odrisamer Despaigne had a sub-3 ERA this season and was great in the playoffs. Manny Barreda, who had a few MLB appearances a few years ago, led the LMP this season with an ERA under 2. This is a good team. The LMP team always matches well with the other Caribbean champions, and this Nan Heroes team is better than the usual team out of Mexico, and they've been hot lately. They just better hope that having the past week off didn't cool them down. From Puerto Rico, a familiar name, Creos de Caguas. They won the LBPRC title for the 21st time. Just like the last 2 teams we looked at, Creos have the most titles in their league's history. They are also the last team to win consecutive Caribbean Series titles. They did that in 2017 and 2018. Creos were 21-19 in the regular season, tied for 3rd. In the semifinals, they took care of the top-seeded team 4-1. In the final series, a best-of-9 series, they beat Gigantes de Carolina 5-3 for the LBPRC title. In the infield, Vimao Machine, Oakland A's a couple years ago, had a .373 on-base percentage in LBPRC this winter. Emmanuel Rivera, a decent hitter for the D-backs last year, part of their World Series team. Gabriel Arias hit 10 home runs with the Cleveland Guardians last summer. In the outfield, Nelson Velasquez hit 17 home runs last summer in MLB with the Royals and Cubs, OPS just under 800 this winter. Dwight Smith Jr. really came through at the plate for Criollos in the final series. On the mound, 20-year-old lefty Eduardo Rivera, a lefty coming up through the A's system, threw a mix of starting and relief this winter. Former Detroit Tigers pitcher Brian Garcia threw 9 scoreless innings in relief. Alex Claudio, happy birthday to him, over 300 games pitched in his MLB career, had a .164 ERA in Puerto Rico this winter. Ricardo Velez had a .152 ERA out of the bullpen, 8 shutout innings in the final series. The LBPRC has been more of a pitcher's league lately. I'd expect Criollos to try and beat teams with their bullpen, changing pitchers frequently and winning low-scoring games. And it'll be interesting to see how the team performs under first-year manager Yadier Molina. Venezuela was the last country to figure out which team was going to the Caribbean Series. That just ended on Sunday when Tiburones de la Guaira won the league title. Unlike the first 3 champions we looked at, this is not a team known for accumulating championships, though they used to be. 7 LVBP titles, all between 1964 and 1986, but they had been on a 38-year title drought until they won on Sunday. Tiburones had a decent showing in the regular season, 30 wins, 26 losses, good for 4th place. In the 5-team, 16-game round robin, they won their first 5 games and cruised to a 12-4 record and a spot in the final series. In the final series versus Cardenales de Lara, they almost made it a sweep, had a 3-0 lead, lost Game 4 by 1 run, but then put the nail in the coffin in Game 5. Starting with pitchers, Arnaldo Hernandez, a .147 ERA in 30 innings of relief. Eduardo Paredes, another good reliever, .253 ERA in 21 innings. Ricardo Pinto, a reliable starting pitcher in the regular season, great in the final series where he threw 14 scoreless innings in 2 starts. At catcher, Luis Torrens played for the Cubs and Mariners last summer, homered twice in Game 2 of the final series last week. In the infield, Alcides Escobar, over 1,400 Major League hits, still a .300 batter in Venezuela. Brian Rocchio debuted for the Cleveland Guardians last summer, had a .998 OPS in Venezuela over the winter. Leonardo Reginato brings power to the lineup, 8 home runs and a .507 slugging this season. Michael Garcia stole 23 bases for the Kansas City Royals last summer. In Venezuela this winter, didn't steal so much, but put together a slash line of .424, .543, .576. In the outfield, look at the names there. Harold Ramirez, Ronald Acuna Jr., Yasiel Puig. Puig had an 11.23 OPS in the round robin, 12.37 OPS in the final series. This team has been on fire lately, and they've got an all-star lineup of hitters. Pitching is not really a strength, but it's been really good as of late. Everything's coming together for this team at just the right time. In Panama, the season started and ended in January. They usually play the shortest season, but this year it was especially short. The result, same team as last year, representing Panama in the Caribbean Series, Federales de Chiriquí. In the regular season, Federales were 8-6, half a game better than second place Águilas Metropolitanas. So Federales and Águilas met in a single game championship, and that was won by Federales 8-3. Don't know a lot about this team. We do know that a couple major league stars will be there. Edmundo Sosa hit 10 home runs for the Phillies last summer. Christian Bethancourt hit 11 homers for the Rays. Xavier Creos led all pro-base batters with a .392 average. 35-year-old starting pitcher Luis Machuca led all pitchers with a record of 3-0. But with only a dozen games played, it's hard to judge players on their season stats. If your strategy here is to bet against Panama because you think their short season means they won't be ready for a tournament like this, I've already tried it and it doesn't work. They always do better than expected. Last year they played a short season, then won 3 games at the Caribbean Series. 3 years ago they didn't play at all, season was canceled. Then they scrapped together a team that reached the semifinals of the Caribbean Series. When measuring talent they come up short, but they always seem to find a way to win. In Curacao, an even shorter season was played. In fact, it wasn't even a season. From December 3rd to December 10th, the inaugural edition of the Curacao Professional Baseball League was a 3-team tournament won by the Curacao Suns. That earned them a trip to the Caribbean Series. They've had the longest break of any team coming into this tournament. They've been off for over 7 weeks now. Some very recognizable names in the infield: Didi Gregorius, Andrelton Simmons, Jonathan Scope. In the outfield, former Major League hitter Roger Bernardina, active Major League hitter Jurickson Profar, Vladimir Ballantyne, the guy that hit 60 home runs in Japan just over a decade ago, Dashenko Ricardo behind the plate, a regular in the Dutch League. Pitchers, a former Major League pitcher in Sharon Martís, Juan Carlos Soberan, a dominant pitcher in the Dutch League last summer, Nelmerson Angela, another one of the best starting pitchers from the Dutch League. The roster has plenty of names we all know, but just like when we looked at the Netherlands national team roster last year around this time, we noticed that age is not on their side. Some of those players are a decade removed from their time in MLB. Plenty of youth from the Dutch League, but we always wonder how performance in that league can translate when facing players from the top winter leagues. One thing we do know, these guys play well together as a team. If everything clicks for them, they could go far. And the first ever team to represent Nicaragua in a Caribbean Series will be Gigantes de Rivas. They were the champions of the 5-team LBPN for the 4th time this year. All 4 of those titles have come in the last 11 years. They started the season at 7-0, got cold for a little while, then recovered to finish in a tie for the league's best record at 19-13. In the 4-team, 12-game postseason round robin, they were second with a record of 7-5. In the final series, they took care of Tren del Norte 4-2 for the LBPN title. Starting pitcher Yuander Negrin, a longtime pitcher in the Mexican leagues, is there. Jesus Linares had the lowest starting pitcher ERA in the Nicaraguan league this year. Joaquin Acuna is the top reliever, only 2 earned runs allowed in 28 1/3 innings. In the infield, Chesler Cuthbert, former Kansas City Royals infielder, less power than previous years but still gets on base. Elian Miranda had a .956 OPS this year. In the outfield, look out for Francisco Peguero, a former San Francisco Giants hitter who's been on a tear lately. Batted in 10 runs in the 6 games of the final series to earn the series MVP. During the regular season, he was second in OPS. Juan Montes and Jairus Richards both had OPS over 900. Richards led the league in on-base percentage and stole 25 bases in 30 games. Catcher is perhaps their biggest strength. Rowdy Reed, a former Washington Nationals catcher, led the league in home runs, slugging, and OPS this year. So they've got a few ex-major leaguers, and the domestic league has been compared with the Colombian and Panamanian leagues. Panama and Colombia have already had Cinderella runs to the Caribbean Series title in the last 6 years. Could it be Nicaragua's turn? They don't have the most talented roster here, but I won't count them out. So who's going to win this thing? Well, in the last 5 years, if you said Dominican Republic, your chances were really good, and that could very likely happen again. They've got a good team. But I'm betting this is one of those years they get tripped up in the semifinals and someone else gets a shot at the title. The Puerto Rican team, not only this year but any given year, has the talent it takes to make a run for the title. I won't be too surprised if they pull it off, but I don't like what I see from this group of players, not enough to pick them to reach the championship game. Nicaragua, seeing as it's their Caribbean Series debut, I don't know what to expect from them. Panama, never know what to expect. Either one could make a surprise appearance in the semifinals, but not all the way to the title. Curacao actually could win it all with the players they've got, it's possible, but compared with other teams, I would rank them as number 4 or 5. The teams I like here come from Mexico and Venezuela. They come from two of the strongest winter leagues. There's no doubt the level of competition they had to get past just to get here. Both teams didn't start out so great, but by the end they were not only the best, but dominated, as they ran to their respective league titles. It'll be a great story if Tiburones, after winning the Venezuelan title for the first time in 38 years, turn around and win the Caribbean Series for the first time ever. They've made 4 appearances in the Caribbean Series and finished runner-up 3 times. But I'm going with Mexico's Nan Heroes de Hermosillo to win it all. Mexico has not had a team win the series since 2016. Part of the reason for that is the best team from the LMP usually doesn't win the LMP title. The most talented team often gets upset, and the team that does best in the LMP playoffs is not the best team to represent the league in the Caribbean Series. This year, though, they've got the right team there. If not this year for Mexico, then I don't know when. First place Mexico, second place Venezuela, third place Dominican Republic. Those are my picks. But that's just what I think. Let us know what you all think down in the comments. That's all for this one, and until next time, this is Baseball International. See ya.